Welcome to my cruise, trying not to be showy. I got to pay my dues to keep my jalopy. If we get the views, the shots will be flowy. We will try to amuse so it doesn't floppy. You got to see the twos, the Mando and Stormy.
Alright, I am super excited about this video. It's my first real mod for the Tacoma. Well, what is it? Drum roll. It's going to be grill lights. Not just grill lights though. I'm also going to construct a 6-circuit Fusebox relay box so that I can add a bunch more accessories once I'm done. So this is just the first of many, up to 6. So watch and see what I've planned. And we'll see together if I actually succeed. So here we go. Okay, here I am at my lab bench. So we're going to go through. I'll show you my contraption I made for the relay and fuse box for accessories in the Tacoma. Here we are. Here's the components, and I'll walk through it and how it works. And of course, I do everything within I draw it up first to make sure I understand what I'm hooking up and combining. So here we are. We're talking about the Accessories fuse relay box. All right. So what we have here essentially is, what's the reason of a relay box? The whole point of a relay box and having relays and fuses is essentially so that you can, one, if you draw too much current, your fuse breaks, and it prevents the current draw from pulling too much power from your battery, and preserve all the rest of your circuits there and prevent a fire. Because on the other side of that, it can't take of that fuse, that circuit can't take more than whatever that fuse is rated for. So you're trying to prevent it from getting any higher from that, so you won't cause a fire. So on the other side, now the other reason for having the relay itself, and we'll go through the circuit, but essentially is you don't want, most of your accessories are pretty high powered, relatively high powered, draws a high current. Whereas in the cabin, you don't really want to be running high current through the cabin of your car, just in your engine bay. And to separate those two things, you use a relay to do that. So you have 2 circuits that are part of the relay, and we'll go through that in a second. One being for the controls, to control the relay. That comes from the cabin. It gives it a signal when to turn on and off the switch. And on this side, this circuit, which is coming from the battery, this one's the high current draw circuit, and it comes out, this is the supply that goes out to your accessories. Now, how does this work? So let's look at this. So now this is the one that connects to your battery. I'm missing the end piece because I ordered the wrong connector, but this will go to the battery. And from the battery, it goes through, what I have here is essentially a 100 amp fuse switch. And so I can actually turn it off when I'm using it and working on it. And I don't have to worry about the electricity going through it. And so it disables the power from being sent through that on this side, not on the control side, but on the supply, on the high current side. Now it also provides a 100 amp fuse in it, essentially. So what happens there is that if any of these circuits draws too much as a whole, it'll stop all my accessories from operating, so they don't draw because there's some short going on. Realistically, each individual one circuit has its own fuse, so they should short out. These fuses should short out for their individual ones, and these should not sum up more than 100, so you should be good. But it's an additional protection, and it's going to be very useful, so I can turn it off, so I can work with it without worrying about unplugging the battery. All right, so what do we have here? So in from the battery is the 12 volt that comes in. Okay, comes through here. Enters through the fuse, okay, and it goes in parallel to all the fuses. There's 6 circuits here for 6 accessories. Okay, each one its own size fuse, whatever size you want. Okay, and in this case, right, my first two are probably going to be what I got set up is a 15 amp and a 40 amp. The 15 amp is for my grill lights, and the second one is probably for the 40 amp one. That's probably going to be for my my LED light bar that's hidden underneath the grill. All right, so both are in the front of the car. Okay, so the light comes, let's look at the first circuit. So it goes through the 15 amp fuse, okay? And as long as that's not blown, it goes through there and goes into this first one. This is number 1, because each one of these, for each of these different each of the different circuits. So this is the first one, and we'll call this the white one. Number 1 is white because my colors are white for that. So it goes to the white one, the white circuit. And what ends up happening there is that there's a switch in here that only will turn on when this over here, this is the control side that comes from the cabin. When this is high, when there's power supplied through this line, so there's a switch in the cabin that enables this to be powered on. That'll turn on the switch in this box, in this relay. Okay, and then as a result, the current that comes through here is now allowed to pass through that switch. So remember, the control one just turns on off that switch. It has nothing to do with the high powered circuit, the high amperage circuit, high current circuit. So then after it goes through the switch, it comes out through the white wire that comes out of this cable down here into here. And so these now become this line here then goes out to that accessory to give it power. And so it now enables me to have a switch inside the cabin that I could flip on and off, which will then enable this switch to turn on and off, which then sends me power. Hopefully that makes sense. Now on the control side inside the cabin, I got this unit here, which is basically, in this case, 3, but you could have more. I could have up to 6 because I have 6 different 6 relays here. So 2 of these actually are going to be using those 2 different circuits. The other one's the camera, so that's not going through that same accessories box. So, but any given one of these, what happens is that it has its own power that comes, and it has its own fuse that's going to be using an add fuse connected into the fuse box that's in the cabin, okay, which is a switched power circuit. So it is only on when the car is on. Okay, so they get power through this line into here only when the car is on. And this has its own fuse, and it's I think it's got like a 7.5, looks like a 7.5 amp circuit or fuse. It goes through this, goes to the green line where that is. The green line's here, okay, to these 2 different ones. In this case, I will just talk to this first one. So as the green line, we'll get the power, okay? And then you get the switch in front that gets activated or deactivated. And what happens there is essentially when that's activated, then you have power that comes out of the other side, which is going to be one of the red ones. And that red one is what then goes into the control line that's over here. It'll go through the firewall first, so that it won't be this exact wire. It'll go through the firewall between your cabin and your engine bay, and then connect into here. Okay, so now it's connected to the white line here. So that becomes part of the control line for my white circuit, okay, which goes, again, that controls this particular fuse box. All right, and then secondly, there's also in the back of this, if you notice, there's going to be more than just those 2 lines that we just talked about. There's also 2 other, there should be 2 other at least. There's 3 others actually. There's 2 others. So the other 2 are for illumination. So, and we are going to use that. So in this case, I'm going to be doing a daisy chain between all of them with those 2 lines that feed into the cargo light bay, the cargo light switch that's already in the Tacoma. And I tap into those 2 wires to get illumination light. So hopefully that makes sense. The last thing to talk about related to the control line, essentially this control line, as it goes into this wire, which is the white wire again in that particular case, and it goes into the relay, okay? And it's what enables turning on that switch like I mentioned before. But it also then has to, the other side of it, it needs to go somewhere, which really goes to ground. And so the ground wire is, in this case, I got it connected here, okay? And this connects out to the frame of the car. So that's your common ground for the entire car. And so that's the only reason you have a ground here. Now I might return all my grounds back to this location for the ones that are nearby. Other ones I won't. Let's talk about grounds for a quick second here before I show how this thing's connected. With grounding, most of these, even the accessories, it goes out to your device and then your device has to return to ground, right? On the other side of that device, let's say it's a light, okay? But they should all come back to the same common ground. But that's a long distance, right? So how do you solve that problem? Because the longer the distance is, let's say let's go to a light that's in the rear of your truck, and it gets returned back to this location here. That's a really long run. And that long run, the longer it is, the more resistance it has. And so your ground no longer is truly the same ground, because now it has some potential at the connection because of the resistance of the wire. So how do you solve that? Basically, you get a fatter wire, right? The thicker wire reduces its resistance, and so you could have longer runs. Well, you don't have to do that because that's really expensive. If you're running some of this expensive wire, and get thicker ones than that to make it run a long distance. So the best solution is you already have a really, really, really fat wire in your car. That being your frame of your car, it's really fat. It has very little resistance because how thick it is and how big. It's essentially equivalent to a really thick wire. And so you can return all your wires through your frame back to the same common ground, okay? And they're all connected because it's all the same frame. And you could always check that using your continuity tester to see that actually you are, which I do all the time to make sure I got a good connection. So anyway, that's the concept with the ground. Now, how does this connect to? How does that ground connect to the frame, and how does this whole contraption work? Basically, what I did was, what you see, I got, as I mentioned before, there's like really this the relay box I purchased. These two terminal boxes, the main switch, and then I built out this little frame that it goes in. And that little frame essentially is a just made out of aluminum. And as a result, what I have now is that I have two holes here. So what I have to do to connect this thing is essentially this thing will lift up first for me to get this in here. And you can see that's how that gets screwed into the frame. And then I lower this side, and then I'll screw this one into the frame. Now that there's two inside of the Tacoma. There's on the side, there's two different holes that are for attaching relays and other things to your common ground. So I'm utilizing those two screws, just two holes for 4 screws. First things first, always disconnect the ground. Okay, you could see how I've attached the grill lights, the Raptor lights in the grill, and the wires are all attached neatly so that they end up over here. And I got them sticking up over there, and I put two connectors on the end so they connect to the relay box appropriately.
Install fuse relay box. Main power switch remains off. Connect accessories to fuse relay box. Connect relay fuse box to battery. Remove trim. Remove the poverty buttons. Install switches. Connect add a fuse to the in-cabin fuse box.
There you go. Okay, so then I just quickly took a little knife and made a very tiny slit, cut in the little plastic grommet. And now you can see I stuck my screwdriver through it so I can remember where it's at, and I can see it from the other side. Not sure if you can see it very well here. It's actually right in the middle of the V right there. There, the screwdriver is pointing right through there. If you could see where the tip is. So anyway, it's popping through. So I'm going to run the wire through that hole. Okay, now to run the two wires through, I got a green one and a white wire. That's my green and white circuits, or relays. So I keep the same color scheme. It's white being the first one, green being the second one. So the white one's going to be for the Raptor lights. And the green one's going to be for the other lights, the hidden LED lights. Light bar. All right, so that's taped. So I should send this right to that hole again, and we should fish it out from the other side.
Connect the control wires to relay Fusebox. Connect switches to the control wires, the add a fuse, and the illumination circuit. Reattach trim pieces. Reconnect battery.
Alright, so now everything's hooked up, everything's cleaned up, and at least for the test, clean up for the test. Let's turn this on, see what happens. Alright, I turned the engine on, and as you can see here, the lights for this one's on my driver, what's called driver lights. That's my, the Raptor lights, and the grill lights, so that's this one, turns on and off. This one turns on and off, that was working before, the colors. This one, if that's, there's nothing connected to this one yet, but that one works. So you can see here, this one on and off. There's no real lights on that one, but now, at the moment. So let's see. Oh, let's trick it. Let's turn on the light on. So we turn the lights on, and voila, we have the bottom ones now turn on, which they weren't on before. This one's on, so now you can see how it behaves. If you don't want it, if you just want it so both things turn on at the same time when you push it in, there's another way to do it. But this is the way to make it so it's with here. And supposedly, you can see now even here, this is lit up when the lights are on. So actually, you should be able to see it better during the day, or during the night, I should say. All right, so as you can see here, I was turning this knob here to control the knob here. That controls the lighting, how bright the illumination of the front is or isn't. And so as I turn that up, it did adjust this slightly. So there is some benefits there. I think you'll notice it more when it's dark.
Yay! We have success!
And they're on, so spectacular, it's working.
Good shape. Yeah, you just where you got it perfect. Good.
The first accessory was installed for Mando, and more to come. So thank you for staying and watching. It's a wrap.